Dan and Dan with a gaming flair, pixel dreams and worlds to share, joystick tales and button cues. Welcome to Gaming Views. Level up, we're on the go. Power ups in the audio flow. From the retro to the new reviews. It's a life of games with Gaming Views.
Welcome to episode 2 of Gaming Views, and I'm laughing because as and when we do release video, Dan, we've still got to do that dancing we were doing to that intro.
I genuinely love that thing, G, so much. Every time.
It was funny because when we recorded the pilot, I just stuck in my casting views intro, didn't I? And then I messaged you. I think it may have even been that same night. I said, Dan, I've got us an intro.
It was, yeah. And how much better of that. People talk about the demons of AI, but Dan, there are good things for it, I tell you.
Number one. It'll be number one in the chart soon. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm very good, thankfully. Yeah, I've had a break from work, so which has been very nice, and spent an inordinate amount of that, even though I was away, still gaming, thanks to those lovely inventions of the little handheld pads, the little backbone. So that helped me massively. So yeah, but I've been really good, and now, eager to get cracking on episode 2. That difficult second album, and see how we go.
Nice. Yeah, it's been a while since we recorded. I think partly because I've been on holiday, you've been on holiday, and partly I've had well, I'm not going to call it the flu. It's not been the flu, but I've just been
Is it man
really
flu, Dan?
grotty. Yeah, I've been so grotty this last week, but I want to record. And as you said, episode 2, the difficult return. We've had a lot of conversations though since the last episode, how we want to take it. So we're going to settle into kind of like a groove of, I think we're going to talk about what we've been playing since the previous one, then a talking point, and what we're looking forward to.
Oh, yes.
So,
yeah.
What have you been playing since, or what sort of gaming stuff have you been up to since the last ep?
What haven't I been playing is probably... I think the last time we talked, we were on the cusp of the Switch 2 pre-orders, which I managed to bag. So I'm very thankful that I managed to bag one weirdly through Argos with Mario Kart. So saved a bit of cash as well. So very much looking forward to June for that. And then, I seem to have been ripping through quite a lot of the recent Game Pass releases. Got my mind completely blown by the puzzle of Blueprints, which I know I talked to you about, but the depth that thing goes is insane. I mean, it's almost like you complete the main objective, which is essentially a room building game. The play on words, Blueprints. And you build rooms, and it's a roguelite, so you kind of go through each day and the rooms reset. But the idea is to find the elusive missing room 46. But once you've done that, it's almost like you've done about 25% of the game. The depth of the puzzles in the thing is just insane, and you only have to take a look at Reddit to see, the amount of conspiracies and theories and, solutions and all sorts of these things. So it's not normally my normal type of game, but I've seen such good things about it. I thought, I'm going to give it a blast. So that was one thing. Then on your recommendation, I picked up South of Midnight and tore through that, completed that, loved it. Not even on story mode, which is unusual for me. I kind of went, no, do you know what? I'm going to have a go at it. And it's not a taxing game, but absolutely beautiful. Stunning. The music in it is incredible. It's good when your wife sits down and goes, it's really weird, but it looks great. I was like, yeah. So, and then obviously, just the last week, Oblivion Remastered. I mean, it's just hit the nostalgia spot, the nostalgia sweet spot. And I'm only level 7 or 8 or something at the moment, but it's taken me back 15 odd years going, this is what RPGs were like when in their heyday. So yeah. And then, gearing up for a bit of Doom later next month, and just generally absorbing what's out there.
Nice.
How about you?
It's been a couple of games since we've last recorded. So, and you know what? And you saying what you're saying about Blueprints and South of Midnight, which I'll come on to as well, leads in, I think, perfectly, accidentally to our main talking point as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Which we'll come on to. But for me, there was 2 games. It was Life is Strange Double Exposure. I
Yep.
do like that.
You're a big
style
fan
game.
of those, aren't you?
Yeah.
Those Life is Strange pieces. Yeah, I couldn't get into them, but I know you really enjoyed them.
I think the first one still stands out for me, head and shoulders above them all. This one, I had fun with it. It's not as good, but personally, but I still enjoy that type of game. And
It hints. I haven't seen anything about it, but it hints at something camera related with the whole double exposure. It feels like there's an element with a. Is there a.
it's actually I think the first game had more of a camera element. This one is
Okay.
It's very clever. It's got two timelines. So
Right.
well, it's not a spoiler because it's part of the game. So there's a character dies, and your character can be in the timeline where she's died and the timeline where she's still alive. And I think that's what the double exposure is.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
And I think the reason why I like those games is they've got like a heart to it. The characters are quite. There's a bit of emotion behind the characters.
Got you. Well, I think it's something we both enjoy about the games that we pick up is the storytelling element, right? It is that you kind of get pulled in, you're drawn into the the games that we typically play, and actually, I think when we go on to talk about today's topic, there's a lot of those feed into that because they're very much story driven. Certainly, the ones that I reminisce about are very much story driven elements to them that pull you in.
Yeah, I've really found myself over the last probably 10 years is the game's got to have that story for me. It doesn't have to be like mega cutscenes or anything. It could be told through, like, I've only had brief exposure to blueprints, but it could be through notes or something, and that could sometimes
Which
be
is
more
almost
effective,
that game in
right?
its entirety.
So yeah, I played that and completed it. The other game was South of Midnight, which I know I was talking to you about, and I love this game. So if you're listening and you're on Xbox, it's on Game Pass. For me, yeah, if you've got Game Pass, it's just play it. You've got nothing to lose. For me, it's we at some point we might talk about it. We've discussed there are it's not. Is it perfect game? No, but it looks great. The soundtrack for me is just astonishing.
It's phenomenal.
I actually want to
so
buy
good.
the soundtrack, and I think I found it on Spotify because
Okay.
it's just so good. And again, it's a game that's got that heart and emotional core to it, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, 100%. It's a wonderful story. Didn't quite go the places I was expecting it to.
Mm.
And I think the only thing that for me was the tiniest of letdowns was the end was just very abrupt. But like you, I think it is the epitome of that double A statement of a game, which is like, come and play me. I'm not going to take up inordinate amounts of your time or maybe even brain power, but I am going to draw you in with something quite special.
Yeah. I was like, I started playing it and I thought, oh, it's just like an action adventure game. But when you do the first sort of quotes boss, it spun on its head for me then.
Yeah,
and I just thought, wow, this is a game. So yeah, I completed that last week. So the frustrating thing was I think it's got 14 chapters. Is it 14?
12? Yeah, 14 sounds about right. 14, 15, something like that.
Well, I got up to the penultimate chapter before I went on holiday. Then I left it for a week, and I was just thinking, what's that last chapter going to be like?
Oh man, I can't wait! And then you get to it, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
And I think just to echo you, I couldn't believe it. I was so excited when I saw Oblivion Remastered drop. So I think that came the day I got back, and I'm someone who I completed it originally sort of 3 or 4 times. I think Oblivion.
Yep.
Weirdly, I was having a look on the Xbox because the achievements bit shows you the dates you unlocked it. I've obviously completed it in between, but my first achievement was in 2009. The final achievement, which 100% is it, was 2017. So I've been playing it. I was playing it sort of like on and off for 8 years. It's almost like a new game, isn't it?
It is. It was one of those games that took over my life at the time. I played it and it was all encapsulated. It was the only thing I played, and I laughed off the whole horse armor, saga, and I think it was those interconnected systems that you just kind of go, this is nuts. Like, being able, for anyone who hasn't done it, try it. But when you get hold of a poison apple, being able to pickpocket and put that in someone's pocket.
Yeah.
and then just walk away and watch them slowly lose 10 health points every 5 seconds or whatever it is and die, with no ability to heal them. So, those sorts of things, and the way, all right, you look at it now and it's a bit clunky, like the NPCs wandering the same routes and things like that. But still, from we're talking 15, 17 years ago when it was coded, it's a work of art, and just that, and you can see where all those RPGs come from, and it is, like you say, now in Unreal Engine 5, like a new game. I mean, it looks stunning. I mean, it's still a bit janky, but it looks amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be Oblivion or a Bethesda game, right, if it didn't have some clunkiness. I mean, I still think the original still looks good.
Do you know what it's lost for me that the original had? It was... It sounds really bad, but it's that Vaseline 70s porn star shine that it had to it in the original, right?
Yes,
and now they've kind of taken it and kind of gone, no, we're not going to do that. It's very pretty, but there are elements to it where they've taken that away. It looks very brown, quite a lot.
Very much so.
It's
very
a lot
much
of brown,
very
not in
much.
a bad way.
Well, there's two bits I'm looking forward to. One is the Shivering Isles.
Yes, I never played that DLC.
Oh, didn't you?
Or the other one. There were two, weren't there? And I didn't play either of them, so I'm really looking forward to getting end game and playing those.
That's good. And the other one was, there's a mission I remember where you go into like a painting or a painted world or something like that. That rings a bell.
So I've just done the dream world. So in one of the towns, you have to enter someone's dream and do the tests of perception and courage.
Okay.
And so there's that one. And yes, there is. I can't remember if that was this or Skyrim, but there's definitely I remember the painting one, because as I was playing it, I was like, "Is this the paint?" And then I was like, "No, this is different. This isn't." But yes, there is the painting one.
That's it. I've got two more things to say about it. One, I'm like you. I'm still early on. I'm level 10, I think, but I've decided to hit the Dark Brotherhood missions because I want to get all the bad stuff done first and out the way, so I can focus on being the good guy again. Oblivion for me was one of the first games when I first played it, and I think I might have done it on the PC. Either way, where I realised, because I was new to the game, that I completed the main quest in like, I don't know, 6-7 hours, but there was like 80 hours of game outside of the main quest, and that's what, my mind was blown at that hold on, the main quest is like the smallest part of this game.
Yeah, I was reading just today, actually. I was just, an article popped up on probably IGN or somewhere, and basically said, how long is it? And I think it was like between 20 and 25 hours for the main campaign if you take it at a steady pace. And then the additional content could take it anywhere up to about 120 hours, and then Shivering Isles and the other DLC were about 40 hours each. And I was like, wow, I'm not doing anything till 2027 then, am I? I mean, that's me sorted. So, but yeah, just you think what went into making, and there aren't that many of your bog standard, fetch quests and things like that. They're all quite nicely tailored and written and, unique, which again is what makes it kind of special, right?
But it's the ones that you stumble across. So it's definitely a game. I mean, it does force you not to for a lot of it, but it's definitely a game that rewards not fast traveling.
Yeah.
You have. I think you have to in this.
I'm nodding in agreement, even though I've been fast traveling quite a lot.
No, I think there is some. Like for me, when I'm doing like the Dark Brotherhood, you'll fulfill a contract and then I'll fast travel back to where I need to go for that, because I know there's going to be missions then when I can explore. But yeah, it's if you're listening, explore. That's all I say. So okay, I think we've caught up with what we've done since we last released. So let's hear a trailer from some friends of ours. It's going to be the Game Club pod. Now, I love these guys. The thing is, they do about 5 or 6 different, ultimately sort of sub-series which come out various days and every other week. So yeah, let's hear from them now, but make sure you go check them out.
Welcome to my friendly Game Club, where everyone is welcome. The podcast where we share, we play, we run and sing. Well, we don't run, but we do sing.
Hey kids, are you looking for a new favourite fortnightly video game review podcast?
Then boy howdy have we got the show for you.
We take a different game every 2 weeks and we review them just like a book club.
You can find us on all good podcasting platforms.
And some of the sketchy ones too.
Simply search for the Game Club podcast and join the club today.
Right, Dan, we are back, and as I was saying before, we have got a number of subjects we want to do as a main talking point of the episode. I think this one, we didn't plan it, but it's fitting really well with the games we were talking about at the start. So we're kind of going to talk about what it is, or the difference between like AAA versus AA, and I guess we need to throw in indie games into it.
Yeah.
So I guess we need to just, for our view, is what do we think the difference is between them? So I think it's easy with the independent developers. You know, you're talking maybe a handful of people, right? It's a game on a real shoestring budget usually.
Yeah, and I think a lot these days, and maybe actually historically, have kind of been primarily released digitally, and a lot of them take an opportunity in the indie space, which you probably would, right, to release on things like Game Pass, to release on things like, you know, PlayStation Plus, PS Plus, because, you know, it affords you a mass audience for something that's potentially a first project, or something on a much smaller scale than you've got ambition for. So yeah, for that, in that kind of indie space, it's a bit like back in the day, right, in the 90s, 80s, 90s, you know, when you go indie music, same thing, right? It's an independent record label. It's small, it's niche, it's maybe not something you go to a small venue to hear or whatever. It's almost like that extrapolated out onto the digital gaming scale, and then you kind of go up a tier. And I think, you know, I had when we started discussing this, I was kind of like, oh, just do a little bit of research, just my own sanity. And whilst, you know, there is a rating, I think you almost kind of go, well, indie's probably around that similar sort of space, because you then move up to kind of AA, which is actually more, you know, bigger budget, bigger development team, but not of a scale that's mass marketed, not of your, you know, your Assassin's Creeds and your GTAs and things like that. It's kind of a smaller. So I guess there's quite a broad swath of games that could potentially fall into this. And when I was reading some of this detail, interestingly, some names popped up that you kind of go, I didn't even think about that. And they said, were it not for things like the marketing around him, something like FIFA would be considered a AA, because actually it's a smaller scale development team. It doesn't take an awful lot of money pumped into it, but actually, you know, it's because of the marketing that sits behind it, it's a AAA. And interestingly, what they think is probably one of the most expensive games ever to develop, which I hadn't considered, but when you think about what they've put into it, was actually Half-Life Alyx, because of the platform, because of the tech they developers build into it, because they bought their own orchestra, they, you know, all of these things they did to create all of the stuff for it. Actually, that Valve will never release the numbers, but they think it was probably one of the most expensive games ever made, and therefore considered AAA, even though the opposite was true, that it was niche marketed to a smaller number of people. It's a weird thing.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you. And while we're still talking about what we think is or isn't like triple v double A, so in my head, I'd always had it that, yeah, your AAA is your big budget, big studios, big marketing, right?
Yeah.
And your AA, then you just go down a level. Maybe it's not marketed as much, etc. But you know, when I was looking around on the net, some of it was saying like production values, you know, AAA, very bigger production values. But then, you know, I was saying there's two things. One, look at South of Midnight. I would put that as a AA game.
Agreed. Yeah.
But when you're looking at it, they've not skimped on the production values, I think. You know, certain game mechanics could be improved, but when you're looking at it as a whole, you know, it's great. And the one I want to put to you, and I asked Joey of Game Club Pod as a test for this, and he kind of thought very similar to me, so I thought I'd throw this at you as a surprise. Baldur's Gate 3, where does that sit for you?
So Baldur's Gate's a AA for me, because I think it was in pre-release for a very long time, right? Probably one of the longest I've ever seen. I'm hoping No Rest for the Wicked doesn't go the same way. And I didn't partake in the pre-release. I read lots about it, and I used to be a huge D&D nerd back in the day. I used to play almost religiously every evening with a group of friends. And so I waited for it with great anticipation. And when it came out, I don't think, you know, from a AA versus AAA, look, it wasn't mass marketed. I think the word of mouth thing hit post, you know, advanced release. I think, you know, lots of people became invested in it. The forums blew up with it. and it became this true, look, it really is a proper D&D game. It's limitless in terms of the things you can do to overcome a problem. And I think that's the beauty of, Dungeons and Dragons. Part of that, being a geek back in the day was, if I'm going to solve a problem, I can do some shit. I'm just going to turn invisible and nick this thing out of this guy's pocket. Or I'm going to, and you just roll a dice to determine it. And they've managed to build that mostly into a video game, which was phenomenal. But as a, look, Larian Studios aren't massive. They haven't got a massive track record. It's a small development team. So for me, it's a AA all day long. But
and this is it. So initially, I said AA because, like you said, Larian aren't a massive studio, and that's no disrespect to them. But I think what it is, and then I decided to look around, and some people call it AAA. I think what it is they're a AA studio that have produced a AAA game in the sense of they've shown love to it. They've created a fully contained game.
Yeah.
I've not actually played it yet. I've got it, but I've not played it. But it's clearly, what do they call it? A project of love for them. They've not just done this by numbers. So
yeah,
are we seeing that? And that's where I was thinking coming to this. The lines I think are blurring more because indie developers they're not just churning out spot the difference game or almost like a PowerPoint slide game.
Yeah.
Indie developers are up in the game a bit. The AA games are up in the game a bit, and maybe what we're seeing is, and actually something I was going to say to you, are we falling out of love with what we traditionally call AAA games because some of these AA studios are producing far higher quality than maybe what we've seen from quote AAA?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's that wouldn't be the reason I was falling out of love with them, in all honesty.
Okay.
I think it's the repetitiveness and it's the cookie cutter attitude to what they're doing. And
but that's kind of what I mean. Sorry, so there's no risks, there's no frills.
You throw in another mechanic. You kind of go, it's essentially the same thing. I'm it's on a snow planet, not a lava planet, but I've thrown in a grappling hook. It's fine. It's the same game with a different suit. And for me, that would be why I fall out of love with this franchise. And Far Cry is a great example of that, right?
Yeah.
Far Cry, not big AAA title, right? But it sits in the Ubisoft camp. Fantastic game. First one was brilliant. Second one was even better. Third one just insane and about insanity, but a fantastic game. And then it started getting, do you know what? I've done all this, and it's just a slightly different setting, and the protagonist is slightly different, and the antagonist is slightly different, but the story's just and. Yeah, all right, I went and played them, but you're like, oh, look, there's an elephant in it, or there's a, and you're like, really? Or now I've added a dog as a sidekick. And you're kind of like, yeah, but I'm just basically sniping enemy camps from a distance and then going in and taking all the goodies,
No, sorry, but this is exactly what I was going to say, where I say, I say it for my part that I'm falling out of love with the AAA games is because we're saying the AA's are up in their game, indies are up in their game. And AAA's, and I'm not going to say for all of the games, and not going to say there's no enjoyment, but it's absolutely what you said. It's year in, year out. We get the same game reskinned, and games have been doing that since the dawn of time, right? But look at some of the games I absolutely loved in the past. Call of Duty. I couldn't wait for the new game to come out.
Yeah.
Then I think they did a clever thing by alternating it year on year with Black Ops and Modern Warfare,
studios, right?
That gave 2 studios 2 years in between. But even that then just felt difficult. It felt tiring. Assassin's Creed was another one. I loved that series.
I think it's quite telling that I've been playing Assassin's Creed religiously to the moment that Shadows to the moment I picked up Blueprints and then South of Midnight. And immediately my attention was diverted away. And I did go back after I finished South of Midnight and completed what I could of Blueprints and went back. And I was just like, I'm just back into Murder Machine mode and I'm not really feeling
But that's
engagement.
It. We're just getting the same game. And, it saturates. Like Assassin's Creed, I went a few years without buying them. And then I think when Origins came out, or was it Odyssey? I like that, but now even then again, now it felt like they were then just releasing, but making them bigger and bigger, which I'm not saying is necessarily the right thing.
So here's an interesting thing, right? So I made a list. I was like, right, thinking back through my potted history of games, I made a list of what I consider AA games, right? And people can disagree. And with two exceptions, there are no sequels to any of these games.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And I haven't included Dead Space on that list, although I wish I kind of had of sort of. In no particular order. Recent ones are kind of Atlas Fallen and Eternal Strands, right? So I'm going to take them off because if there's a sequel, they're not going to announce it right yet. Time Shift, which was kind of a first-person shooter, time travel, weirdly. Evil West, which was another fairly recent, right? Rogue Warrior, Black, Second Sight, Psyops, Prototype. I know there was a Prototype too, so I'm kind of like... And then there was Singularity. And the exceptions, I guess, there was Breakdown as well, which was an early one. We've spoken about this before, and you don't remember it, and I fondly remember it. And then there's the kind of two exceptions were Fear, because I love the Fear games 1, 2, and 3, and then Darksiders, which I also love, like 1, 2, 3.
Yes,
but I think all of those I would consider kind of AA standard games, and I can't quite put my finger on what makes them that for me. It's almost like they're really well put together without the level of polish, and there's a narrative to each of them that hooked me in without it being the same time and time again. You know, even with Darksiders, I think switching to a different character with a different perspective on the same storyline that was happening was kind of a really cool way of moving that narrative, all with different abilities and things like that. But I think each one of those was, and I'm struggling to articulate what it is that I think makes them AA and not AAA. Because for me, it's not a scoring rank, right? No. You could easily turn into that. But I think there is just that, instantly when something's a AAA. GTA is a prime example of that, right? And that was something that went from a AA.
Yes.
Or an indie, actually, all the way through all of those things.
But you see, I guess the difference, because GTA I knew would crop up from one of us, I think it's the difference for that one is because they do wait so long between iterations. So it's you are waiting for the next one, and they generally do tend to up the game a little bit. They mix it up. You said it yourself with Far Cry as well. Loved the first. When we talk about Far Cry, I'm talking about the more modern iteration. So is it like 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, 2 was kind of South Africa, but it was 3 where it really kicked off.
And I loved that game, but then you were just playing the same game again.
Yeah, I mean, even Primal, which was like, we're going to make it different, and you're like, but you're not. I haven't got a sniper rifle, but I've got a bow that does exactly the same thing. It's just a different skin. It's all you've given me, So but
going back to your point, what you're saying about why those games. For me, and you said so many good games in there, like Second Sight and Psyops as well. Is it that all of those, the telling point was you said no sequels. Is it that these are like brand new IPs, brand new stories, so there's a bit of love and attention put into it, and knowing that you can't capture maybe lightning in a bottle a second time, or the opposite, that it's not, but it's not iteration 8 of the same game, so they're just churning it out at that point because they know people are going to buy it. Is there that attention and love and thought put into a game that isn't title number 8?
I think it's probably a bit of the former. I think it's a lot of these things. Is it lightning in a bottle, or is it I've told that story? Because even when you take something like Prototype was on my list, the first game was incredible. The second game was okay, and it was just a bit more of the same, which, don't get me wrong, in some instances I absolutely love, and I'm happy to pick it up and have a bit of popcorn and just kind of go, it is what it is. But I think a lot of those on that list that didn't have a sequel or a planned sequel were purely, they told that story. It was an encapsulated story, and they're kind of going, I've done that, and I've told it and it worked. And you could argue that maybe they didn't sell. Right, maybe it didn't sell in the quantities that warranted a signal, and I think that's part of the depressing thing. Is a lot of these games that we talk about, the Assassin's Creeds, FIFAs, Grand Theft Autos, whatever they are, these big games, they're purely driven by a number. It's all about capitalism. It's all about they've drawn in this. I mean, one of the biggest games in the world right now is GTA Online, right? So it's like, well, it would be a no-brainer not to make a sequel to a massive selling game like GTA 5, right? Make 6, upgrade the online component and continue to spin money off the back of it. So a lot of, so when you see these things that, like Dead Space and things like that, they don't quite make the money, because we got 3 of those, right? And they were all great in their own way. That story of Isaac and the different settings that he was placed in, and they were all really good stories in their own right. And the only reason that 3 didn't happen from the studios and the developers themselves was that because it didn't make enough money. So they had more story to tell. I think a lot of the time that, they told that story they want to tell, therefore they don't need to, or they've got more stories to tell, but sorry, it didn't make enough money, we're not going to bother.
I want to say I'm not bashing AAA games, because there are some good ones out there, and
Totally.
there are people obviously get enjoyment out of them. But the other thing is, we call it churning them out, but they know they know it will sell, especially Call of Duty. It doesn't matter how many times the campaign is slated, it sells because, they know what they're doing with the online side of things. And it doesn't matter that it's just a slight reskin. It's so you can't win sometimes, because when they do tweak it, they get slammed for going away from what is the Call of Duty formula. So it's almost like damned if you do and damned if you don't, right? As a studio.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm totally on board. Look, there are games that I'm still looking forward to that are considered AAA, and I love that. Studios like Bethesda and people like that. Like I spoke about Doom. I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't, say that. I'm not. Whilst I love AA games, and I'm probably where my heart is, I will happily go to a AAA game. Doom Medieval's out soon. I'm going to smash that, right? So that's going to be one. The next Bethesda RPG that comes out, I'm going to smash that, right? Because I know it's going to be good. I know it's going to be. Well, see, this is an interesting point, right? So I say that, and then you look at something like Starfield, right, which had all the rumors and all the speak about it. It was going to be this phenomenal, game-changing sci-fi Skyrim, whatever it was, right? It just wasn't. It was just a bit the same all over. And I know they've done work and I haven't picked it up since. I got bored after less than 20 hours. And I'm not suggesting every game should be, stupidly long, but there wasn't something, it felt soulless. And then you look at something like No Man's Sky, which I put, pure indie when it started out, and I pumped hours and hours and hours into without a curated story to stick to, or someone else to go and speak to. That came much, much later. So it's interesting. I think for me, if something feels a little bit soulless and a little bit, I don't know, put together like Lego, you're kind of like, meh, is it? And maybe that's the difference between AAA and AA. It's the passion and the storytelling that's gone into it.
I do wonder with me as well, is it, we alluded to it in the last episode, is it that AAA's often they think more is better, so I just don't have time to do it. Like Starfield, that's a great one, because for me, that's a game I should love, right?
Yeah, agreed.
It's my game all over.
Right in your wheelhouse, right?
Just didn't get on with it. And it's because I just couldn't take the time. I didn't take the time to get to really get taken with it. But that's my decision. And maybe, and when I look at the games I've been playing more recently, like, South of Midnight, nice 12-hour campaign, it sounds longer than it is. It kind of whizzed by. Maybe
but
there's
we're all time poor, right?
Yeah.
But it's just the way we are these days. We're all time poor. We don't have, it's our most precious commodity. Whilst we might have disposable income, we haven't got disposable time. So what we choose to spend our time on, I did spend time trying to engage with Starfield. I made it exclusively the thing I was going to play when it launched, because I wanted to, I wanted to get in there and be a space pirate and, have a jetpack and all that, and yet it all just became a bit meh. Now, look, there'll be people out there, and I think this is the beauty of video games. There'll be people out there who are screaming that it was, the greatest thing that was released that year or since. And fair play to you, right? Because it's all supposed to be subjective. This is your and I opinion on this whole thing, right? So this is just our perspective, and we're going to agree on some things and we're going to disagree on some things. But it just didn't click. It didn't click, and I think there are a number of, and I'm finding more and more, and maybe it's an age thing, like I said, Assassin's Creed Shadows is unbelievably beautiful. It is a stunning game. Honestly, if it was just a riding a horse simulator, I would be quite happy just going from place to place, watching that wind pick up the leaves and I was blown away by Ghost of Tsushima, but this is I didn't think anything could beat it in that same setting, and it's stunning. And now they've got Ghosts of Your Time, which just looks even better. I'm kind of, if I just did that, I'd be happy, right? But it's the mechanics that sit behind it have left it a bit soulless.
And look, and maybe there's something to say that the two of us, we've got 40 plus years of gaming, right? So we've seen quite a bit. But and I was just looking at some of the, I was just looking at my Xbox playlist, because the majority of games I think recently, other than like Oblivion, is and Call of Duty is like those, what I would say, the AA and indie. Like I've got South of Midnight, there's a Blueprints, I've not played it fully yet. Now I've got a game, Blue Wednesday, I played that. That's, I think, is, that line between AA and indie. I've got Eternal Strands, Cabernet. And I think what you were saying then is something you remind me of, is that also, can you take more risks in a AA and indie? Because we've just said that when a AAA does take a risk, sometimes the fan base don't like it because it's not FIFA anymore. It doesn't feel like Far Cry anymore.
I think you can. I think that's part of it, right? I think you can be more risky around what you put into it, what the story is. I mean, look at a studio like Double Fine. I mean, they've based their whole catalog basically, on risk. I mean, Tim Schafer started out at LucasArts, and all the great work he did on things like Full Throttle and things like that. But when he split and created Double Fine, a game like Psychonauts. I mean, come on, can you imagine the board pitch for that? No, well, actually, it's a group of secret agents that don't really exist in the real world, but jump inside people's heads to solve their problems and their mental health issues. And you're like, what? Sorry, you're doing what?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think there is an element of risk that you can almost gamble, but the danger is the territory you then fall into that goes, well, okay, you can do another one, but make it bigger and better, and sugarcoat it and whatever. And I think that's the bit that's like, man, I wish they'd just make more of the purity and more of the than then try and keep going and going. And there are some that like Assassin's Creed is a really good example of, they've had some fantastic, it started off as, I mean, in fairness, probably a AA title, right? It's set in a very small world. It wasn't open world. It was very niche. It was and they tried to take that back with Mirage, and they, but then you had, Black Flag, and it introduced a load of stuff that people fell in love with, and pirates and ships and sailing and stuff like that. So I think he's done a really good job of kind of moving things along. But I think the last, 2 or 3 have just got a little bit samey and a little bit kind of meh. So I think they haven't taken those risks that you talk about,
Yeah, well, they made it. I remember Assassin's Creed being one game where they said, right, for a year or two, we're not releasing a game.
Exactly. Yeah, we're gonna.
And that's what it was. It was like a breath of fresh air, wasn't it?
Mm. Yeah, I haven't got to worry about getting that next year because I'm going to buy it. I'm going to get it anyway.
Yeah. And we took risks as well. Another game hit me that I was just looking at playing. Have you played a game called Indica?
No, you've mentioned it to me, and it's on one of my lists. It came up. I was looking through something the other day, and I was like, "Why I forgot that?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, Dan."
Now, the only reason I bring that is I was having a look. It's made by, developed by Oddmeter and published by 11-Bit Studios, who I think they have former CD Projekt. But the game is about a nun looking to adjust to a monastic life, and the twist comes that she has a connection with the devil. Now, no, what company is going to do that? We're fine putting out FIFA 25, 26, 27, 28. And,
exactly.
And you get these kind of quirky, interesting, and inventive games from the indie world. So maybe maybe it's what's the word? It's a great biosystem where you can get your big shooter yearly update, but you're still being fed these quirky games, from elsewhere.
I would much rather have the best of both worlds. Right. So like you said, this isn't about knocking anything that's that's out there from a AAA, large marketing, large budget. I sound quite down on the whole thing, but I wouldn't want it any other way, right? I love the fact that I get to pick and choose, the games that I play in the way I want to play them, on the format I want to play them, and the type that I want to play. Right? Look, I've always been primarily single player focused, whether it's a shooter, whether it's an RPG or puzzle, whatever. I'm not a big online gamer. I just haven't got the patience for it. I think playing with other people, and
I haven't got the reactions anymore.
Definitely haven't got the reactions. We used to do it, right? But I think now I've very much gone into it. So the fact that I can choose between an indie game that does something fantastically well, like Boltaro, which is just a card game, that I got obsessed with last year, right the way through to the gamut of all these big, fancy, flashy, super advertised games. I love the fact that I can do that and everything in between. Because it's like I said, it's I think it's such a subjective thing. On one man's junk is another man's treasure in video games. I think that's never been truer than the world we live in today. With it, we're spoiled for choice.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I was going to say, yeah. So I'm not sort of Call of Duty as much as I've said, oh, it does this and that, and it's just churning out. So I've done it recently with a few friends, jumping in on the online side of things, because there is that element of just jumping in, having a few games with some friends, having a laugh, getting annoyed at it, and it's fun. But playing the campaign, I said to you, I used to love waiting for the campaign. So Modern Warfare 1, 2, probably 3, even Black Ops 1, 2, 3. But the newer ones turned me off. However, again, go right back to what you mentioned, Evil West, where I picked up. It was on Game Pass. Again, not the perfect game, but my God, did I have fun with that.
Such fun. I mean, it is. I mean, if you haven't played it, go and pick it up, because it's just silly. It's just a silly, I can't think there's any super special mechanics to it or anything that make it, stand out. It's just a heavy, and I mean heavy in the kind of Gears of War sense that, you're quite a stompy, not even barely running around shooting things, in the old Wild West, aboard at times a hot air balloon or whatever, a Zeppelin type, it's kind of all this, but it was just pure fun. It was like, I can have a bit of that. I'm happy with that.
It was like ghosts of vampires and things in a Wild West setting, wasn't it? And it's like, what a great mashup.
It was brilliant. I mean, I'm talking about it now. I'm thinking maybe I'll go through that again tomorrow or something. Because it was just like you said. It was fun, and I think that, if anything, is what you really want, right? You just want it to be fun.
And I'll reiterate what we said in the first episode: is that you and I have just grown up loving games, and I think that's where sometimes if we're down on something, it's just because we want the best from it, isn't it? We've always enjoyed doing what we're doing, and we'll probably be doing this till we're 80, right?
Do you know what? I often find it hard to think of a time where there won't be something. There was an article I was reading the other day about a guy, it was probably on Polygon or something, but someone kind of talking about, look, like, I play video games, but they genuinely help me. It's not necessarily a break from reality, but just even recently, that Blueprints thing was almost a way to disconnect my brain from work and reconnect with other parts of it that were kind of puzzle solving. Because I don't have a monotonous job, but there's always something that comes up, but it's generally now more about office politics and managing that, the people element of things. So to be able to go and switch into a game that is about logic and puzzle solving. I mean, I did something I've never done. I don't know, it's probably around here somewhere, but I've actually got, honestly, I've got a notebook.
Everyone, I'm seeing the notebook.
I never
yes, look at that.
Right? Make notes about like look, there's little like,
wow,
honestly,
look at that. That's a walkthrough. You should be putting that online. That's a walkthrough.
But this is what I mean. I've never done that, but it became so absorbed.
But that says it all.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're sitting there making notes about physical notes about because I didn't want to spoil it by going, well, let me just have a look at a guide. And don't get me wrong, there were a couple of times I had to, because I was just like, this is frustrating the hell out of me now. But in the main, I solved as much as I possibly could. Probably about 95% of what I did in that game, and I'm nowhere near finished it. But even my daughters were getting involved. So my 11-year-old, there's a puzzle in there that revolves around a dartboard, right? And it's all around arithmetic. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. But then it starts getting into things like square roots and, fractions but all around the numbers on the dartboard. So the solution is always going to be a number between 1 and 20. And honestly, there were times she was getting to a solution quicker than me. And I was like, this is brilliant. She's learning math that's probably about the right sort of for her age. So I'd be calling her over and going, Matilda, you see that? And she could work out the puzzle because it's all colour based. And she'd be like, oh yeah, it's 5. And he'd be like, no, it's 5. Oh, it is 5. Oh my God. So, it was engaging she'd just come and sit with me. As soon as it went on, she'd be like, can we do the billiard room puzzle? Because I love that one.
Yeah.
And then she'd be like, oh, have you tried digging over there for that thing? Have you tried that key in there? So she started getting really engrossed in it as well. And they started making their own notes.
That's brilliant.
It's not a multiplayer game. Do you know what I mean?
That's brilliant. The fact that, your kids are getting into that as well. And, the fact that you've got, and like I said, there were pages and pages of notes. If a game can make you do that, because a lot of times they say, oh, you should have note and pencil, make maps or whatever. But you can't be bothered because the game is good, but you're not going to do that. But if a game's made you do that, then it's got you, hasn't it? It's absolutely got you.
100%. I mean, it was, look, we went away for a break, just a little city break in between. And like I said, I took the backbone and most of the time I plugged it into the iPad because it's just a slightly bigger screen and used the cloud gaming piece on it. I'm diverging from our conversation, but it was of an evening when you're sharing a room with 2 young kids and your wife and a dog. There's not an awful lot you can do past, kind of 9:30. You've had played pool downstairs at the bar or whatever, and then you kind of come up to the room. So to be able to turn that on and be absorbed by that while, the missus is reading and the other one's reading a book or she's drawing or something. And then Matilda will come and sit down with me and kind of go, oh, can we play Blueprints? And it was just a wonderful, joyful thing, and people go, oh, yeah, but it's just a screen. It's just like, but yeah, but that's an opinion, right? And that's why this whole stuff's so
Pac-Man was just a screen.
Right, exactly. Sitting and making your way through Netflix is just a screen, or reading on a Kindle is just a screen. Yes, it is, but there's a level of engagement, and it excited my daughter, and it made me happy, and it made me happy. It was something we could do together. She started making her own little notes around it and stuff. So yeah, it was wonderful. And then one night at the end of the holiday, they were all dozing or whatever, and I was just finishing off my run of a day. And I managed to open and find room 46.
Oh, you've done it?
I managed to find room 46.
Okay.
But it works on, you have a number of steps per day. And I got to the outer room before unlocking room 46 and ran out of steps.
Oh.
And it reset the entire mansion for the entire following day.
Oh,
and I
man.
was just like... And then the worst thing happened, and I realised there was something I could have done to extend my steps and allow me to get there, and I didn't do it. And I was just like, think about it.
But
now,
the fact that it's got you thinking like that, and that's the thing. It's like,
but I wasn't super angry and frustrated, which I have been in the past when you know what I mean? It was just like, I'll go again tomorrow. I'll try it. But it took me another 10 days, not real days, but 10 game days, which is in-game days, to finally do it.
Yeah.
Even though I knew all the solution, because it's the random number gods.
Yeah.
It was certain stuff had to happen, stars had to align for me to get that thing, and it took another 10 or 15 days for that to happen.
Well, this is the thing. I've briefly looked at it because I realised, and this will be my point, that it's got a lot more depth than it looks like it has. So I've decided quite quickly not to play it until I knew I could dedicate time. So I started South of Midnight. But this is what I was going to say. If you've seen clips of it, you'll make the same mistake that I think a lot of people have, say it looks extremely simple, but it's not, is it? That's the thing.
It has layers, it's a very clever upon game. Layers. It is a milfoy of a video game. It's it's just insane the depths that it goes to. And even today, I read again, just reading an article of someone saying, I didn't realise how much of an, and this might upset some people, but how much of an anti-fascist game it is. So there's another story thread that I never found, and a room that I never found, that tells a very different spin on the story that you piece together throughout it. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't, because I haven't read that book in the game with that specific thing and the unredacted copy. I was like, I didn't even know that. Like, so it like I said, I think completing the main, credits roll part of the game, 25%. And you've then got another 75% to solve all of these things. It's insane. And I don't even want to know what the inside of the guy's head had created or girl's head had created that game, because it's mind blowing.
Well, and this is it. And at some point, we'll probably also talk about like individually, like the indie developers or the solo developers, because there's been a couple of big ones in the past, haven't there? Like Braid was the big one, wasn't it?
I love Braid.
Yeah. And that was all done by one person, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or at least the majority of the game.
Yeah, Tunic was another one.
Yeah, Tunic.
Well, the biggest one ever out of all of them was made by one person, and that was Minecraft. Right?
Minecraft,
Notch created that. I mean, the man, again, I think you have to have a semblance of madness, right? But he created that, and now look, it's a bloody movie starring Jack Black and Jason Momoa, for Christ's sake.
Well, that's it. Well, there's a couple of games I've got specifically because they were done by one person doing it all. And there's a game, I think it's his company, he calls it Two Bad Games. There's a game on the Xbox, at least, it's called Broken Minds. And, you can see it's very a basic looking game because it is one person. But the story he's trying to tell in that game, I kind of admire that, you can get these people that, we used to talk about like the bedroom coders in the day of the Commodore 64 and the Amstrad. You're kind of getting that now still. And like, and I'll talk about Xbox predominantly because that's been my platform over the years. They've always tried to have a big like indie presence on their marketplace as well, haven't they?
Yeah, it's part of the joy of Game Pass is picking up something that you would never have even taken a second look at and going, my God, this is brilliant. I mean, I don't know if you've played Tunic, but that's another example of a phenomenal game. That it's kind of an isometric Zelda type thing. You play a fox, but the puzzles and the depth of that, again, they're not Blueprints level, but they are pretty mind blowing once you get your head around them. You're like, that's how that works. That's what that chime there means, and I didn't know that meant. And that arrow pointing there means this thing, And again, layer upon layer. Yeah, these people have so many more tools at their disposal now to be able to create these things. I mean, in essence, No Man's Sky was created by one person. Right at the beginning. Kind of when it went into pre-release and. And you look where that's taken him now, but he's persevered with that for 10, 12 years now, and it's just grown into this cult following, and it's mind blowing.
And the abuse he got at the start, remember that?
Yeah. But when you go back and you look at it, I mean, my girls were interested in seeing it because they kind of wanted to play something that was a bit less. Roblox, and they were just like, "What? You can just get in a ship and just go anywhere?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, provided you've got the bits for your ship, but because it's got this kind of exploration mode now, you can pretty much do that anyway." And this is all procedurally generated. It's all, you're like, "This is mad."
Yeah.
Like, I head to this thing and it's got its own biosphere and it's got its own plant life and and you're like, "Wow."
This is it. Now, I've been having an internal argument with myself this whole episode now, and I think I can formulate it. I think I was saying that I'm kind of frustrated that the big AAA companies don't innovate enough. Like, for example, we had the Nemesis system in the Lord of the Rings games, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. Warner Brothers. Oh, dear. What did they do?
Kind of amounted to nothing after it. They used it in a couple of games, and I loved the idea of that, but then it's just fizzled out. And I'm thinking, why aren't the bigger companies innovating like that? But maybe we don't need them to. Maybe, as we said, we just need them to put out the big popcorn, blockbusters each year.
Yeah.
And these indie and AA developers are the ones who are giving us our intrigue.
You look at WB, I mean, one of the things that as an umbrella company, a parent company, they're very good at and have always been very good at is litigation and the legal aspects of things, right? I mean, these guys own DC, right? So, they've always managed to shut people out of, specific characters, be it Superman or Batman or whatever, and then someone's laid a claim to something, they've always been very good at it. I mean, Marvel are the same, right? They're or Disney now, they're the same at that. But they did this same thing with the Nemesis system, is my point, right? So they've essentially locked that piece of technology out now until I think it's something like 2030, and you're like, what you could have done with that, you put that in a, you know, any other game where, you know, you defeat someone and then they come back bigger and stronger and they've got a grudge against you and they've built an army to fight against, or whatever it is, you know, you put that in any other setting like Batman or something like that, you're like, this is insane. But no, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit on it and lock it down and make sure no one else can have access to it.
Nobody else can have it. It's my ball.
Yeah, and it is a bit that. It is a bit, you know, well, it's mine. But what are you going to do with it? Nothing. But how does that help anybody? You know, so yeah, I just don't understand it. But I think it does stifle innovation, which I think was your point, right? I think it just stops people from wanting to do cool stuff unless they can kind of keep it to themselves or keep it niche in kind of the indie world and go, well, I'll do it that way then.
And then they can just buy that indie developer and then a new one will come along.
Which is what they do, right? Which is what Sony and Microsoft are now doing. I mean, that was the realization they had a few years ago. It's like, well, screw it. If I can't create this stuff myself, I'll just buy the people who are doing it.
Yeah.
I'll throw money at them.
Yeah. Right. Was there anything else around the AAA, AA indie brackets?
No, I think we've talked a lot about a lot of different aspects and our personal opinions on them. But the thing I would say is, look, there's so much out there that everyone is so spoiled for choice. Just enjoy what you love, man.
Exactly.
Like it doesn't matter what platform, what game, what genre. It does. Who cares, right? It's your thing. Play it your way, right? So do what you want. And I'm just lucky and privileged that I get to live in a time where I can do this, right? And in whichever way I choose to, and a great friend to talk to it about as well.
Oh, well, thank you very much. But echo exactly what you say. Yeah, there are courses for everyone. You might not like that course, move on to the next. That's exactly it. But let's enjoy it. And we're going to have a lot more of these conversations.
Indeed.
So before we close out, what are you looking forward to?
So I probably spoiled it already, but I'm very much looking forward to Doom Medieval. See, I'm not afraid of AAA games.
Doom the Dark Ages,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Doom Dark Ages, sorry. Yeah, Doom Dark Ages. Yeah, so I'm that looking forward to it. I can't even name it correctly. So I'm looking forward to Doom Dark Ages. And then I think I'm just getting my Oblivion on at the moment. I in terms of there's not. Look, I'll be lying if I wasn't super excited about Ghosts of Yotei, because I loved Ghost of Tsushima, and one of the joys of being able to play multi-platform is that I've got a selection I can go to. Mario Kart World is I'm obviously going to be smashing that with the kids come June the 5th. But imminently, one of the things I have done, which it was this is a bit of a test bed for me because I know you're a massive fan. I've never been able to gel with the genre, but I have downloaded Clara Obscura.
That's mine. I was going to say that. Yeah.
So I because I've seen such good things about it, and I want to try. All right, I genuinely, I mean this without bullshit. I genuinely want to try and enjoy a turn-based combat, because I think the last time I enjoyed one of those. No, I can't think of a time. I've never enjoyed it. So I really do want to give it a go and put everything into it. So it's going to be, I'm going to have kind of a side by side. I'm going to be playing Oblivion for a bit of the longevity piece, and then I'm going to dip into Clara Obscura and see how I go on. Both
good choices. That's what I was going to say pretty much. Yeah, for me, between now and in our next episode, it'll absolutely be like Oblivion. Keep going at that. Hopefully I've done all the other factions by then. But yeah, the one game I'm really looking forward to is Expedition 33. It came up on my radar quite late. You then mentioned it to me. I think you said you thought I'd be playing it. And if I hadn't have started, or if Oblivion hadn't have released, I absolutely would have done. But like you said, I love those turn-based combat games, like the old RPGs. But also, I've tried to stay away from it, but I've seen a few videos online. It just looks crazy and incredible at the same time. So
yeah, I think it's got the reason I kind of went like I'm going to give it a go is because every single thing I'd seen about it, be it a review or a kind of just a passing comment, was it had a beautiful depth of story. And when we talked a lot about AA games, and a lot of what they do really well is to bring that story, be it twisted, weird, unusual, in an engaging way. And I was like, well, I love a bit of that then, because I love that kind of drama and piece that goes alongside a really well put together and thought through game. But I just remember what's coming up is Revenge of the Savage Planet as well, which was Savage Planet was a cracking game. I don't know if you played it. It was like FPS,
Yeah.
but Revenge is they put it into third person, so that's coming out. I think it's next month. Might be in May, towards the end of May or early June. So that as well is another one for me. But yeah, because I didn't want to have the same two as you. That was all, mate. Otherwise, the next cast could be a very boring cast. Did you enjoy it? Yeah, it was great. Tell me about this bit.
The beauty about you, though, is you've got all the platforms pretty much. So at some point, you'll be talking about games that I don't have. So
this is true. I will make an effort to play a bit more on the PS5. I have intentionally downloaded Robocop Rogue City. So I will be having a go at that, just because we can't go a podcast without mentioning Robocop in one shape or form.
I've played that very good game, but yeah. And the other thing I'm going to look forward to, Dan, is recording episode 3 with you. So
yeah. I mean, now past the difficult first album, second album. Sorry, we can go for number 3.
Yeah, right. Anything you want to say, Dan, other than everything you have just done?
No, it's just I think I've talked far too much, which I think I said at the end of the last podcast as well. But yeah, look, just hopefully we've helped add some context to some of the things we've talked about, particularly around kind of double versus triple versus indie. And it's not a versus, let's be honest. It's just enjoy it, right?
Hey.
So, exactly. So, but yeah, and I think we're going to be doing a bit of a, what topic would you like to hear about, and putting out a bit of a vote, right?
This is what I was going to say. So, firstly, thanks for listening. If you've got any comments, you want to weigh in on the debate about AA v AAA v indie, if you've got anything you want to say on that, anything we haven't said, anything you want to talk about the games we've played or are looking forward to, drop us a note at Casting Views for now. And I'm saying for now because Dan and I have got plans. So this pod will evolve over time. Just give us a chance. But yeah, so for now. And yeah, I think what we want to do is we've already got a long list of talking points that you and I want to talk about, don't we? So we will probably start putting them out as polls to see, basically to see what people want to hear first. So yeah, keep an eye out for those. So Dan, pleasure as always.
And you, mate. Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.
And keep an eye out for the next episode of Gaming Views.